just because it's not your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. And taking responsibility means you understand the learning and you present the solution. Toxic politics thrive in silence, and so the fastest way to cut through it is to bring the unspoken into the room and to make it visible.
Welcome to Her Perspective, Women Who Inspire. This podcast will inspire you with personal stories of women who have followed their own unique path to success. I'm your host, Astrid. As a career coach and mentor, I support women on their professional journey with heart, experience, and plenty of practical knowledge. Having spent many years as a leader in the tech industry, I know the challenges and opportunities firsthand. My mission? To empower women to step into their careers with confidence and create their own paths to inspire others. Hello, welcome to Her Perspective, Women Who Inspire. Today, I'm welcoming an absolute powerhouse, Uma Thana Balasingam. Uma is a writer, podcast host, and a multi-hyphenate founder redefining what it means to lead, grow, and reinvent in today's world. Raised in Johor Bahru, Malaysia, she spent over 20 years leading billion-plus-dollar tech businesses across Asia Pacific and Japan before charting her own path. Now she is building a global platform at the intersection of leadership, media, and reinvention, spotlighting untold stories and making powerful ideas accessible. Her acclaimed podcast delivers raw, real conversations that spark change. Uma doesn't just talk about transformation. She makes it tangible, scalable, and deeply human. Today, she's here to talk about a topic she knows inside and out: navigating workplace politics, how to stay true to yourself and lead with strength, even when odds are stacked against you. Get ready for a powerful conversation. Let's dive in. Welcome, Uma. It's such a great pleasure and honor to have you on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Uma, I came across something which was really very inspiring, and I also thought, okay, this is very special. You started reading business magazines at just 9 years. I think you became those from your uncle. Do you remember a moment back then when you first thought, I want to be like them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started reading business magazines at the age of 9. I wasn't really reading, let's say, fairy tales, I guess. I was dreaming about skyscrapers, power suits, and building a life far beyond anything I could see around me. So this small town that I grew up in, it's called Johor Bahru. It's in a country called Malaysia. Life was simple and the world felt small. My dad was a mechanic who had to give up his job the year I was born due to his health. And my mom was a nurse, and a good life meant a steady job, a family, a house nearby. And for a while, I thought that was my path too. So I would immerse myself into these business magazines that my uncle, who lived in the big city in Malaysia, would bring every time he visited. And it was magazines like Business Week. And so I'd flip through the pages, not understanding half the words, but I would feel the pull. The suits, the skyscrapers flying in front of the plane, the office, the freedom. And what those glossy pages showed me was that there was a possibility, and I wanted it.
Wow. Yeah, that was really interesting. When I came across this, I thought, okay, I think I was more into fairy tales at that age, but okay. Yeah. Can you also take us back to those early days in your career? What were some of the first workplace dynamics you had to navigate as a young woman in engineering?
I got my first interview for a job right after university because one of the girls that I shared a bedroom with. There was four of us. We all slept on single mattresses on the floor. And one of them had a sister that worked in IBM. And she found out that there was this IBM business partner that was willing to hire a fresh graduate systems engineer. And so I got the interview because of her, and that taught me the power of networks. I show up to the
Mm.
interview, and I was late to get my first job, so I knew what my friends were being paid. And in Malaysia, the currency is called ringgit, and the market rate for fresh graduates, engineers, was 1,800 ringgit, which is around 500 US dollars back in the day. And so I was offered the job on the spot. And I remember sitting across from this general manager that was interviewing me. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to sleep on a bed and in my own room? And so I looked at him and I said, no, you are going to pay me 2,200 ringgit. I added like 400 ringgit because that was going to be the cost of renting a room in an area that was semi decent near a train station. And I think he was so shocked that this fresh graduate was negotiating with him that he said, okay. And that was my
Wow.
lesson. Ask and you shall most likely receive. So the rest of my career, I asked.
Wow. Yeah, that was a very bold ask at that time, I imagine. I mean, this is, yeah, I don't know many who would have done that. There was another anecdote I came across which also resonated to me, and which is you once said that you spent the first 10 years wearing only pants at work to fit in. What does that say about the culture you were working at that time in?
I wore pants for the first 10 years of my career. Absolutely. Because that's all I saw around me. And I didn't know actually how to dress as well. You know, I was trying to figure out my own style, and I wasn't comfortable with my body shape. I didn't really like what I saw in the mirror back then as well. So, in a male dominated industry, I think what I ended up doing was to inherit what I saw around me, including the dress style, right? And it was those early days where I started to figure out this ability to navigate the unwritten rules. This is what I call workplace politics, which
Mm-hmm.
is how to get things done through whom, including the understanding of motivations of others, and then how you use this knowledge to influence in ways that enhance your personal interests, but also the organizational objectives. And one of the most important things when it comes to workplace politics is knowing where to draw the line. And that's what I call the values compass, which is the red zone, green zone, and gray zone. And I'm happy to double click into that.
Oh, yes, please. I think that sounds really very, very interesting. So could you go a bit
Yes.
deeper on the topic?
Not all workplace politics are toxic, but if you don't know the difference between the red, green, and gray zones, you'll either get played or get left behind. When it comes to workplace politics, I think of it in these three zones: red, green, and gray. The red zone is where toxic politics live. It's sabotage, undermining colleagues, gossip, manipulation, hoarding information to keep power. This is where people play zero sum games. I win only if you lose. And you don't want to operate here. And you don't want to pretend it doesn't exist either. So you have to know how to protect yourself without becoming a part of it. The green zone is what I call healthy politics. It's strategic relationships, it's sponsorship, it's influence, it's visibility. It's building alliances based on mutual respect. It's speaking up for others, getting the right people into right conversations, helping decisions get made faster and smarter. So green zone politics aren't dirty. They are how leadership and influence actually work when done with integrity. Now, let's talk about the gray zone, which is trickier. It's where intentions get blurry. Maybe someone is positioning themselves a little aggressively. Maybe information is flowing selectively. It's not overly toxic, but it's not clean as well. And so navigating the gray requires discernment. One of the questions I ask is this just strategic behavior or is it tipping into the red zone territory? Can I align here without compromising who I am? So in short, you don't survive politics by refusing to play. You survive and lead by knowing exactly which game you're choosing to play. And I have always chosen to play in the green zone, but with eyes wide open, boundaries clear, and voice intact.
Mhm. Yeah, so I can imagine that it is sometimes difficult to play in the green zone if you're surrounded by the red zone. Is there anything you could share how you would deal with that situation or environment?
Yes. I think for women, especially, the pressure to be likable is
Ah, yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah,
But if you trade your power for approval, you lose both.
yeah.
As women, we're conditioned early to be likable. Certainly it was for me. You know, you want to smooth things over. I wanted to be agreeable. I did not like to rock the boat. But every workplace, every single one runs on politics. And it's important to know that politics isn't a dirty word. It's just how influence, resources, and decisions move behind the scenes. So, how do you stay true to yourself while navigating that reality? First, I had to stop making likability the goal. So, my goal became respect, credibility, and impact instead of constant approval. I think I can be kind without being a pushover. I
Mhm,
can be collaborative without disappearing. And second, I learned to recognize that politics isn't about manipulation, it's about relationships and information flow. Knowing who the real decision makers are, the undercurrents, choosing your battles, not because you are weak, but because you're strategic. When I first stepped into leadership roles, I tried to do everything right, make everybody comfortable, be the nice leader, and all I did was to dilute my impact. And so that shift came when I realized actually I can be respected without being everyone's favorite. I can be human and have boundaries, and I can play the game without losing my soul in the process. So I think you don't have to choose between being real and being strategic, and the real power is when you are both.
mhm, yeah, I can totally relate to what you just said. I mean, especially this likable. I mean, that's how I think around the world, and that's the shocking part. All the women are being raised with, okay, be nice, be likable, and then you land your first job or your first leadership role, and then you're like struggling with these two worlds. How can I be? I mean, to be a successful leader, you have to sometimes say what is true, and not everyone will like it. But it's difficult. I know it, and yeah, it's great you're sharing. And I also like what you said about politics. It's not something that is per se negative. It is just the real world, the rules of the real world. And you need to put more effort also into understanding what is happening around you. I also see often women that they focus on just their job and think about, okay, if I'm good in the job, everything else will just come and I will have my career. But you also need to look left and right and see how is it working here? And every company and every organization within a company has different rules. Thanks for sharing. Very insightful. And what advice would you give women who feel stuck or struggle with workplace politics?
Every company has two organizational charts, the one that they show you and the one that actually runs the show.
Yeah.
If you want to lead, really lead, you have to learn to read the shadow organization. The real power isn't written down in an org chart. It lives in alliances, influence back channels and quiet conversations after the meeting ends. This is the informal structure, the underground communication. And these sets of people wield significant influence over decisions because they hold information and resources. So the first step is observation. Pay attention to who people defer to when decisions are made. Watch who gets consulted behind the scenes, not just whose name is on the title. Notice whose opinions change the room, even when they are not the most senior person there. The second step is proximity. Access comes from building strategic relationships, not just with your direct boss, but with the influencers, the glue people, the unspoken gatekeepers. And it's about offering value before you ask for anything.
Mhm.
It's about you being in the rooms, in conversations where real decisions are shaped, not just finalized. When I was navigating leadership, the biggest unlock was realizing I don't have to wait to be invited into the shadow organization. I had to earn my way in through credibility, consistency, and by being the person that people trusted when stakes were high. So for women especially, it's not about playing games or pretending to be someone else. It's about understanding the game that's already being played and choosing how to show up inside it without losing your voice. You don't dismantle a system you don't understand, and you cannot change the rules until you know exactly where the real power lives. And I show exactly how to do this in my course, From Outsider to Insider, First Moves edition on navigating workplace politics. So check out the link in the show notes.
Thank you for that. It's I like that own your way into the shadow organization. It's I have seen women just stop doing anything because they said like this is the old boys club and I'm not invited. And I think that's what you proactively need to change. And for that, there are ways to do that. And thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure in your course from outside in, we can get a lot of insights on how to do it. You also mentioned that time when you were wearing the pants. And I mean, that was also coming because you were the only one, the only woman. And how do you build allies and advocates in environments where you are either the only woman or only minority?
Yes, when you are the first and the only, and you want to try and show up with authenticity, I think that requires discernment, courage, and self determination. It's not a reaction to what's happening around you, but relating to the players and situation from a grounded sense of who you are. And I think this is really difficult when you are much younger. So this
Mm,
only came to me much later in life when I've started figuring out who I am. Because in some ways, it's easier for people to be against politics than it is to get clear on what they stand for and champion for it. So when I knew what I stood for, then having the courage to advocate for it is a combination of hard or soft power tactics, which should be situational and not what your style or preference is that you apply to every scenario. The second thing I would say is I could wait for the world to change, or I can meet people where they are. And I now understand that to meet people where they are, which is I'm going to go all the way to you and I'm going to try and show up the way that you expect me to show up in whatever unconscious biases that you may have. And by doing that, I'm going to establish credibility and trust so that you get to know me. And once that happens, I'm going to be able to pull you towards me. And what I have found is that it's a really difficult thing to do, and it comes with a mental tax. But between choosing to wait for the world to change or
Mm.
to meet people where they are, I just found that that was something I needed to do. And when you are the one and only, it's a heavy mental load.
Mm. Yeah. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to walk away from an opportunity because of workplace politics?
Not really. I think when you have a very large responsibility, it's very difficult to walk away from workplace politics because it's like saying, I'm going to go back under my shell and this thing is not happening. And I think that's not a choice that leaders can take. And so I've had a situation where it had nothing to do with me or my organization, but I chose to take responsibility to play the game.
Mhm.
And it was the end of the quarter, and a deal was not going to happen. And it was a very large deal. And somehow it came down to my team, although we were very clear on our end that we had always maintained it was not going to happen for various reasons. And when the pre earnings email went out and it said that we missed this opportunity due to, this part of the organization, one of which that I was responsible for, I had a choice to make. And this is where the takeaway is that just because it's not your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. And taking responsibility means you understand the learning and you present the solution.
Mhm.
My team was very upset with me because I took responsibility for something that we were not responsible for. And I decided that I was going to step in because nobody else was. And I also know that in workplace, there is quid pro quo. This is, I'm going to do something in return for something else. And it's unspoken. So I chose to take the responsibility in that situation and then presented the solution and move forward because that's part of playing the game.
Mhm. I see. Yeah, it's difficult. It was for sure a difficult situation. And going back to what we discussed earlier, the wanted to be liked would be in the way of these kind of decisions. Yeah. So, but I'm sure your management was um happy about you going in and taking the responsibility if there is no one else doing it. So leads me to my next question. So what's your view on managing up? Because I'm always being asked about how do I manage up, and especially when leadership might not be always inclusive or supportive. It's leadership. So what's your view on that?
Managing up is equally as important as thinking about building networks horizontally and also thinking about building networks externally. When it comes to managing up, I don't think it's about managing. I
Hmm.
think it's about rethinking that building connections is an extracurricular activity, which I think most women think about networking that way. And thinking about it as building connections is a force multiplier. So, how do you do this with people that are one, two, three, four, or five levels above you? When you're new to an organization, and you get a chance to be on a call or you pass a senior executive in the hallway, it's very important that you nail down your introduction. So people are busy. You want to get to the point, and this is very important. So land in 60 to 90 seconds who you are, what you do for the organization, and then try and say something about them. Either, for example, I have always used the last email that this person sent or the last LinkedIn post that this person wrote. And there are many ways to build connections. Sometimes we think it is only in person, but social media today is so powerful, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, that you can build connections through commenting on these people's posts if they are posting. So you always want to say something about yourself and then link it back to them. This is how I have always built relationships authentically. And the most important thing is to give before you take. And so, what does giving look like? Giving is, for example, commenting on their posts, replying to an email, going up to introduce yourself and offering any help. Making others to introduce you is also another way. A lot of times, I think we sit back and we think that if I work hard enough, the promotions and the visibility should come to me. And all these people in the company, they should know I exist because I work so hard. But it just doesn't work that way. So when you are thinking about building relationships versus managing up, think about it as, how do I create a force multiplier out of the people that hold power, privilege, and platform in the company and even in the industry?
Yeah, I love that. I also believe in really having a real network, which is in all directions. And that is fundamentally what you need to be successful, is also to have a good relationship or a network into your peers, not only up to the management. I have seen that where people just were just focusing on the next level or the next two levels up, and that it will also not work. That it's not working that way. I think that's also what I also like, is that famous elevator pitch. I know so many people who do not really have an elevator pitch. And when I talk about elevator pitches, they are like, yeah, but it sounds robotic if I just repeat. It's not about repeating it word by word. Is the the process of preparing it will prepare you for those 60 seconds that you have in the elevator with, I don't know, the CEO, where you then know exactly what are the key things that I want this person to know about me. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember so many elevator rides where someone in the organization is trying to talk to me. So they know you, but you don't know them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then they say, "Oh, hi, Uma, I'm so and so." And then I feel so bad because I'm like, "Who are you? I don't know you." Right? And the first thing I would say, especially when you're working in a large organization, you want to quickly connect the dots for that executive. For example, who is a direct report to that executive that you are in their organization? That's the first connecting the dot for that CEO or senior executive. So if someone was in the elevator with me and they said, I am part of so and so's organization and that is my direct report, that's the first connection I'm going to make, right? And that's what I think people forget to say. They
Hmm.
go into, oh, I manage this business, and I'm like, okay, but who do you like? I'm trying to think, where do you, in my 800 people, who are you? Right?
Exactly, exactly. And the larger the organization is, the more difficult it is. And yeah, very good point. And talking about your massive sales teams, you led sales teams across 48 different countries. And one question that came up to my mind was, how did workplace politics differ across cultures in Asia Pacific and Japan?
Yeah.
I mean, I traveled a bit through Asia, so I know. I mean, I've been to Japan and South Korea and India, and so I think there is a very different culture. So, what is your experience and thoughts?
Overall, I think the fundamental rules and the values compass in what I talked about doesn't change too dramatically. It's down to, in terms of how respect is shown, what are the protocols, which markets are more hierarchical in the ways that decisions are being made, and what is the right channels of communications that you need to be more sensitive about. And every market is different. The more mature English speaking markets may be more open in terms of channels of communication. But if you go up towards North Asia, then hierarchy may matter more. but also it's important to consider who is the leader of that market. And sometimes the leader could be from a newer generation with newer thinking. So it's very important to understand the nuances of that. So, what remains the same? Who's the leader, and is he or she any different? And then, what are the cultural nuances and considerations that you need to be respectful of when you, as a foreigner, step into those markets?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
The one
Thanks.
thing that I have found, I don't know about Europe, but at least here in Asia, the one common thing that we can all come together around is food.
Yes.
And so that is the best way to build relationships, especially business relationships. And business relationships, people often forget, is also internal business relationships. And so over a meal, I think that's where some of the mess comes off, and you get to connect at a different level because you're not in the office and you're not in that environment where you are performing necessarily as much. And so food has always been the thing that brings people together. So I always make it a point to make sure we're sitting at the same table and eating and sometimes drinking together.
100%. I think that's the exact same here in Europe. And we also have, of course, a lot of very different cultures. And so it's true. And I also like what you said about, I think there is a lot of perception then as well when you visit a country and you have that view about the people. But in the end, it's not the people. It could be that you're sitting in front of a person who is younger, who studied abroad, who already has a very different influence on how they grow up, and therefore are not stuck in that culture too much. I mean, they are still probably having a different culture, but and that's also what I experienced in international companies. Like you work for VMware, I'm for Intel. There is some common ground everywhere around the world which works the same. There is some culture that is a company culture that is existing. So we spoke about the networking, and I also wanted to talk about the role that mentors played. Do you have like specific mentors over the time or over your journey of where you said like, okay, they stayed with me all the time, or you changed, or
Early on in my career, I absolutely had mentors. I didn't label them that way. I didn't have the language to describe them, but they were people that would lend a helping hand or people I would go to advice. Actually, I was really terrible at asking for help as I was building out my career because I didn't want to seem like I was not capable. And so that has become a new muscle that I have built over time. But there were people that always stepped in to help. So over my career, they have evolved to be many different types of mentors. There are mentors that I go to for a very specific topic. There is a few mentors that I speak broadly about just anything and everything. And so I think it's really good to have a board of mentors and in the different areas that are important to you. So, for example, I had mentors as it relates to finance when I was just starting out in managing business units. And I had mentors when it came to a specific technology when I was learning that. I had more horizontal mentors thinking about how I chart my career. So different people play different roles, and that's why it's important to have a board of mentors.
yeah, true. I mean, it's interesting. Most of the time, we only talk about the one mentor that you have and the one and one coach, but it's true. I mean, for different topics, it might be a good idea to look out for other mentors. Now, the question you probably also get asked all the time is, how do I find mentors? And because you said it also that when you're young or at the beginning of your career, you're like, you don't want to go out and ask for help because then you immediately think others think about you that you don't know what you don't know your job. You need help. So two questions actually. One is really, how do you find the mentors and how did you came across this hurdle that you have? Like, okay, if I go and ask for help, how does that look like?
Yeah. So, how did I find my mentors? I started with the people around me that I found something from them that I wanted to learn. For example, when I stepped into my first Asia Pacific and Japan role, I wanted to be a better presenter. And I found this person in the organization that when I watched him, I thought, I want to present like him someday. And so I made friends with him and I would watch him and I would steal everything that he did until I found my own style. So start with the people around you that you admire, that you look up to. And here is my fail proof formula on how to get a mentor. So once you've identified who this person is and what you would like to get from them, start by asking for one piece of advice. So don't go up to somebody and say, will you be my mentor? Because I get that all the time and it's very awkward, especially when I don't know you. So start by saying, hey, I noticed that you do this. I would love 15 minutes of your time to brainstorm about this question because it's an area I really want to improve in. And I can see how what you've done in this area is really game changing. And I'd love to learn from you. And 15 or 30 minutes is not asking for a lot of time. And generally, humans want to help other human beings. So start by a piece of advice and then you do the meeting, respect their time. And then a lot of people don't do this third step, which is to follow up.
Yeah.
After the meeting, send a note to say thank you. Here are my takeaways from what I heard you say. People love reading those messages. It feels so good to help somebody else and to see what really landed with them. Then go away and implement at least one thing they said that you found useful. And then come back later. It could be a month later to say, hey, that thing that you told me to do, I tried it. And here's what I found. By the way, I have another question. Would you have another 15 minutes for me to ask you about this? And that evolves into a mentoring relationship. That has been my fail proof formula.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah, I love that. I think we all had that situation where people came up to us and saying, hey, do you want to be my mentor? And then you don't know what's the topic, instead of building up a relationship based on a topic and then slowly moving this relationship into a mentor relationship, which is, in the end, it's a person that can help you and is often superior. And yeah, great. Um, I always ask that question is, if you could go back to Uma 25 years old, what advice would you give her about navigating career growth and politics?
If I were to go back to being
Yes.
25, which is more than 20 years ago, I if I could go back to being 25, I would say to Uma to not be afraid to ask for help. I remember at that age, I was in my first sales role and I was new to sales. And I put so much pressure on myself that there was so many things I just didn't understand and I couldn't navigate. And I would find myself alone in the office. At this time, I was working for IBM and I'd sit at my desk at my computer and I would cry because I was so helpless. And I just didn't know how to ask for help. I was afraid to ask for help because I didn't want to come across as someone that was incompetent and needed to be helped. So I kept quiet and tried to figure it out on my own. And so the advice I would give her is ask for help, and it's not going to penalize you in any way.
Yeah. Those are these many, many hours that we spend on trying to figure it out or things out on our own, instead of asking for help. But yeah, that's great advice, I think. And so fast forward, you became a leader. We talked about it, and so you managed a huge organization, 800 salespeople. It's huge. And how did you create environments for those salespeople and your leaders in your teams where politics don't crush potential? Because it often does, especially for women and diverse talents.
That's a great question. Toxic politics thrive in silence. And so the fastest way to cut through it is to bring the unspoken into the room and to make it visible. So, as a leader, the first step isn't to pretend it's not happening, it's to name what's real without making it personal. What I've learned is to call out behaviors and not the individuals. So I'll say things like, hey, I'm noticing that the decision making here is getting a bit murky. So let's get clear on what are the facts versus making assumptions. Or I'll say something like, I'm sensing some hesitation in this room. So what is it that needs to be said that isn't being said? So that way I surface the hidden dynamics and I strip any toxicity of power. The second is realignment around purpose. I think toxic politics thrive when people are disconnected from the mission. So you have to remind them and sometimes re-clarify what we're here to do, why it matters, and what's at stake if we get lost in ego or games. And thirdly, you want as a leader to reward trust and transparency, not just performance. I think people watch what you recognize. So if you only reward outcomes without paying attention to how they were achieved, then you're reinforcing the wrong game.
Absolutely, 100%. Especially trust and transparency is so, so important, and will also create a safe environment for potential talents to speak up and the introverts to raise their voice. So what is one myth about success and leadership you think we need to let go of, especially women?
One myth or perception about leadership that women need to let go of is waiting for permission. I think a lot of times we are waiting to be asked, to be seen, to be heard, and we are waiting for permission to speak, to act, to show up, to own our power. And if there isn't a seat that is available for you, bring your own chair. And I'm trying to build a new table so that everybody can come and sit at that table. I used to be that person that would sit at the back of the room and never at the table, right? So it never worked for me. And I think we need to let go of, waiting to be asked and to do anything, waiting for permission. I think we need to let go of that.
Yeah, so true. And you have accomplished so much, unbelievable. And but what is success? What does success mean to you today, especially related to lean in and elevate? And
That's a great question. Success for me has evolved. It's no longer the titles, the accolades, or the applause, all of which were very important to me as I was building a career. And today it's about waking up every day feeling at home in my own skin. It's who I am and how I show up are finally the same person. It's the quiet victories now, the ability to say no with certainty, to choose alignment over ambition, to build a life that feels so good that I don't need a vacation from it. It's impact over optics, it's freedom over fear, it's knowing what I stand for. And I think that, yeah, I'm becoming comfortable to think of my future as not a question mark to fear, but rather this blank canvas that I'm finally trusting myself to paint moment by moment.
Beautiful. So, if you could leave our listeners with just one piece of advice for navigating their careers, what would that be?
For all the women, I have learned that the two most important things throughout my life when it comes to going after what is it that I wanted. So, whatever this means for you, think about these two things. Number one, who is your life partner? Do you want to have one? And who is this person? I think that's one of the most important decisions that women will make for their career. And number two, have a circle. And a circle is not a group of friends. They are people who are around the same stage of life and career as you are, that isn't afraid to put a mirror to yourself without a friendship tax. A lot of times we have friends who tell us what we want to hear. They think we are the most perfect thing in the world and we can do no wrong. And so, what you need is a circle where people tell you the truth, where you can show up unapologetically ambitious, messy, and fabulous. So, those are the two things I think about.
So lovely. Okay. Uma, thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights. I know our listeners are taking away so much wisdom and inspiration from your journey. Before we wrap up, I thought it would be fun to shift gears a bit and do a quick rapid fire question round. So I will throw out two words and you just choose one that resonates most with you. Ready?
Ready?
High heels or sneakers?
High heels,
Blue or pink?
pink,
Early bird or night owl?
early bird,
City or forest?
city,
City or beach?
city,
Okay. Vacation or staycation?
vacation,
So, an active vacation or a relaxing vacation?
relaxing,
Home office or office?
home office,
Coffee or tea?
tea.
Singapore or Tokyo?
Oh, that's a hard one.
I know, I love both cities.
I live in Singapore, and Tokyo is one of my favorite cities in Asia, if not the most favorite. Given I've lived in Singapore, I'm going to choose Tokyo.
Good. And Tokyo or Bali?
Tokyo.
Marathon or yoga?
Yoga.
Now, about food, we spoke about it. International food or local food?
Local.
And now, on stage or off stage? Or behind the stage?
On stage.
Yeah, I can imagine. And last one, book or podcast?
Podcast.
Thanks for the answer.
You're
Now,
welcome.
Uma, that was so much fun. And I could really go on asking you questions all day and chatting. Before we officially wrap up, I have a little tradition here. It's called the coaching snack. It's just a quick tip, could be a book or TED talk or habit, anything that ties back to what we talked about today, the workplace, politics, and that gives our listeners a little boost for their own career journey. So, what is your snack for us?
My snack for your audience is going to be a new course that I've just launched, and it's called From Outsider to Insider, First Moves Edition on navigating workplace politics. You're going to be able to consume 10 chapters of all of my secrets that I used and what I learned so that you can avoid them and you can play the game your way, and you'll be able to learn navigating workplace politics in 24 hours.
Love that. And we already got a glimpse of an idea of your secrets today. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will also put the link to the course in the show notes. And when people want to connect with you, where do they find you?
I am most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me with my name, Uma space Thana, Thana, and I should come up. You can also find me on my podcast on YouTube, so please do subscribe. We have new episodes coming out, and that's called Raw, RAW, with Uma.
Okay, I will also put both links in the show notes to make it a bit easier to find you. So thanks again. I know that this conversation will inspire so many women navigating their own career journeys. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you, Uma.
Thank you.
And to all of you listening, if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you left a comment, shared your favorite takeaway, and hit that subscribe button. Subscribing really helps me grow, helps with the algorithm, and even more importantly, it helps me bring even more inspiring women to the show to share their stories with you. Thanks for being here. And I can't wait to see you next time. New episodes land every other Tuesday.